Hey guys, and welcome to a recent gaming episode, and hopefully this will be the first of many new gaming episodes for me to do, because if you've seen my recent pickups video, then you know that I have a PlayStation 4 now. And I've already completed a PlayStation 4 game, admittedly a shorter game, but something I've been looking forward to for a while, ever since I first saw it and knew that I was going to end up getting the PS4 eventually. The game is called Firewatch, and it is what I would class a part of this unofficial gaming genre called the walking simulator. Now, walking simulator games they're still different. You know, each one is a little different from another, but Firewatch would be a game like that. Other games, including some ones that I have that I hope to complete at some point, would be like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Dear Esther is considered a game like that. Gone Home would probably be considered a walking simulator. Basically, if you don't know that terminology or you don't understand what I'm talking about, it's just essentially a game where you walk around in the environment of the game and you interact with things here and there, whether you're just picking up an item and looking at it, or you're being led to a place and then a little scene unfolds that explains some narrative. Walking simulators tend to be narrative-driven storyline games that don't really involve a lot of puzzle solving, action. There's no combat usually, and Firewatch is pretty much like that. Although I think the level of interactivity in this one is increased. It's about as close to jumping into another genre, I guess, as you could get without there being like major puzzle solving going on. Anyway, like I said, the point of the game and the point of most of these walking simulators is to tell a story over some sort of amazing gameplay. And the story in Firewatch has to do with your character, who, his name is Henry, and he is the opening of the game. I suppose there may be some mild spoilers to this, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers for it, then let me just quickly say I really enjoyed the game. I would recommend it to somebody who has a PS4 or PC because it's on Steam, to check it out if those kind of games appeal to you. So, with that said, now we'll go into a little bit of the storyline. Henry is this gentleman who I take it to be in his late 30s or into his early 40s, and the intro of the game has a lot of these dialogue choices, but it has to do with your character meeting this woman named Julia, and they strike up a relationship, and eventually they get married, and things are good for a time until it becomes obvious that Julia is suffering from early onset Alzheimer's or early onset dementia. She can't remember things. She can't remember where she is or what she's doing at times. And it scares her. It scares Henry, the character that you take on the role of. And eventually things get so bad that she is forced to go into like a special kind of care. And she's from Australia, and her family finally comes from Australia, and from what I gather, they basically just make her come home with them to Australia, leaving Henry behind in the U.S. to kind of cope with all of this. And you sort of learn through the story of the game that maybe he isn't coping with it as well as he could or should. You are allowed some dialogue choices that kind of you can determine how he's really feeling about it. But the dialogue choices take place between Henry and his boss, Delilah. And I guess I forgot to mention what it is that he's doing. So after all that stuff happens and his wife goes to Australia and he's kind of left to his own devices, he decides to take this job being a fire lookout in a forest in, like, I believe it's supposed to be Colorado. and you hike up to this lookout tower and kind of set up shop and start communicating with your boss. As I said, Delilah. She's also a lookout in another tower that you can see from in the game, but you never see her. You just talk to her on the walkie-talkie. And he's to work there for the entire summer. Now this takes place in like I believe it's like the mid-'80s. So there's no cell phones, there's no internet, there's none of that kind of stuff. It's a little stripped down, a little more bare bones. And being thrown into the woods in that kind of a situation makes it feel like you're closer to nature and closer to what's going on around you. So anyway, as he is interacting with Delilah on the walkie-talkie and they're getting to know each other, things are playing out in this little section of the forest that he is, responsible for. So one of the first things that happens is somebody starts shooting off some fireworks, and it is a dry summer like it normally is in places like that, and the fire level is high. So he has to go seek out whoever is shooting off these fireworks, warn them to quit because of the dangers, confiscate their fireworks if need be. And it just sort of leads into a series of different events, mysteries and whatnot. And while the mysteries are there, and while I thought the story in that regard was pretty fun, it was enjoyable narrative, my favorite part of it was the interaction between Henry and Delilah. In my game, I basically played it like, you know that things are never going to be changed between Henry and his wife because her affliction is not going to just go away. And I'm not saying that anybody who has family members or a spouse or a loved one or close friends should ever abandon somebody just because they could no longer remember you, but he had to move on. In my mind, he had to move on with his life because that past was never going to be there for him. Maybe that's something personally this guy right here could learn from, but I feel like this is a completely different situation than anything I've dealt with. But for me, Henry was to move on, and if there was to be even just a fling with his newfound female friend, why not? So I made a lot of my dialogue choices kind of to drive that to a hopeful, happy resolution. And of course, the ending of the game is very ambiguous. It's very vague. You don't really know what's going on. I will admit, when I got to the ending of the game, I was kind of like, it'd be nice if there was a Firewatch 2. But I don't know how you would make that again. Like, you couldn't just say, oh, well, he's got to come back for another summer, and there'll be more mysteries to solve. And maybe she will be his boss, and maybe it'll be someone altogether new. So I don't ever see a Firewatch sequel, but I would love I think it's Campo Santo, I think is the name of the group, the game makers. I'd love to see them do another walking simulator style game, because Firewatch was really, really good to me. It was not as dramatic or emotionally affecting as, say, Walking Dead Season 1, or even as much, in a way, in my opinion, as Gone Home. But it was still a really, really good game, and I enjoyed it a whole bunch. And those other two games I mentioned before, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, are two games that I own, and I hope to play those eventually in the midst of all the other games I'm going to be doing. But I really wanted to I really wanted to play something that I knew I could consume in a day or two in the first few days of my PS4 ownership, and Firewatch really fit the bill. I really recommend it. I think it's pretty awesome. If you like action games, super puzzlers, if you like 200-hour RPGs, Firewatch may not be for you. You just have to understand you're going to be paying about $15 to $20 for a game that you can beat in 4 or 5 hours without doing a whole lot other than just, absorbing the story, which you may or may not find interesting. I really did. It was well worth my money. And that's about all I got to say about Firewatch, though. Definitely check it out. So thanks, guys, for watching, and like I said, I hope to have more recent gaming videos in the near future. So I'll see you then.